that, Knute spent many years with Thomson Reuters. He's got a lot of experience in GRC applications, GRC application, and user adoption. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Knute.
All right, thanks everyone. So I'm going to be talking about improving user adoption, and this is something that tends to get left to the wayside when you're trying to introduce your organization to GRC products or GRC methodology in general. So for the agenda here, we're going to be talking about understanding the importance of high UA, negative perception, user observations, and then I've got a couple of quick wins that you can do in MetricStream in order to try and improve your user adoption and make it easier for your users to absorb information, use information, and reporting as well. So user adoption is the user's acceptance of the programs or systems that you've put in place. And this isn't something that is measured very often in organizations. Everyone just says, we're going to use this application, and that's it. Even a perfectly designed GRC system may not be used if your users aren't directed to it. You know, even if you build it, they might decide not to come. Surveys and internal user conferences, gatherings, or events are a great way to impersonally meet with your end users and find out from them, you know, how are you liking the system, what works well, what doesn't work well, and what can we do as system administrators to change how you're using the system to make it more effective and efficient for you. So what can be done to promote high user adoption? Managing perception and user observations. So this is taken from an actual conversation I had with someone. They said, MetricStream won't be able to accommodate my needs. I asked them, so you've used MetricStream before? No, I've just heard that it won't. This is something that happens a lot when there's been a bad experience with an implementation of some type. Already, people are saying it's not going to work, even though they've never even logged into the system or seen a demo of it. So what can you do to counteract negative perception? Perception is actually 9/10 of user adoption. If they hear something is bad, if they think it's clunky or if it's inefficient, they don't want to use it. And they'll be more than happy to tell everyone in the organization that it can't be used because of something they've heard or something they've experienced. So what you need to do is work quickly to identify where the rumors are starting and talk with that user group, because you want to validate if it's an actual problem, right? It's not, it could be just rumor, or it could be something that you didn't think about during your implementation process or your training process as something that needed to be addressed. You want to develop programs to dispel negative perception and encourage positive perception. So meet frequently with your end users and have discussions around how are you using the system, what are you seeing, how do you like the reporting, what information is missing, what information is available that you don't need, and trying to figure out the best way to accommodate those needs. One way to gather a lot of information very quickly is simply performing user observations. So this was taken from another conversation back in my product management days. The developer said, we're all ready to release this new feature functionality. It's been looked at by the entire development team, and it's gone through QA. I asked, has anyone from the implementation team or the training teams taken a look at it? Were they involved in the development of it? And the response I got back was, no, it's not our fault if they don't understand how to correctly use the thing that we just developed. This is a clear case of developers developing by the path of least resistance instead of the one that can be used to the best of our end users' abilities. So just select a number of your users and ask them to walk you through a typical day in this system. Take notes about what they're doing. Try and hold back any suggestions or comments until after they finish, because by introducing commentary in the middle of their process, you're interrupting what they do and how they're interacting with the system. So you want to see, you know, an unbiased end user usage of issues management or an RCSA or an audit or something like that. Pay attention to where they're clicking, how they're navigating through things, because this is going to give you easy areas to focus on in terms of trying to change the way that they're interacting with the system to gain efficiencies and make it easier for them. After that, develop training materials or quick reference guides to focus on the most efficient ways of accommodating things. I don't know how many times I've been talking with someone and they're like, I don't understand how to create this report or do this report, or the system won't get this report for me. Well, it can. You just may not know how to do it. I'm more than happy to sit down with you and walk you through it and guide you through how to do that. Target specific observations, examples, and express gratitude to participants. You know, so-and-so pointed this out. It seems like this is a common problem for the rest of the user group. This is how they helped us fix it. Excuse me. So quick raise of hands. Who's on M6 and who's on M7? M6. Okay, M7? All right. So we're still on M6, so the screenshots that you're going to see of what we're going to do next is specifically for M6, but it should hold true in M7 as well, just trying to change the way information is delivered to your end users. So does this report look familiar to people? This is the detailed issues report. It's got a lot of information in it. Is all of it being used by your end users? So this report is probably 60 columns long. And of course, you can always tell your end users, okay, so if you go up to your column title, click the little drop down, you can choose whether or not to include this particular thing or not. Go save that as a preference. So every time you launch the issues report, first go select your preference and select the report that you want to see. It seems really counterintuitive because I just want to see the report output right away. I don't want to have to go in. Anytime you start your instructions with click here, then do something, it's automatically inefficient and people are going to hate it. So try and make it simple for them. So what can you do? The system I log in is your best friend and your worst enemy. You can do a lot right with it, and you can do a lot wrong with it. So what I'm going to be focusing on are relatively simplistic things that you can do without getting into any of the back-end database activities. This is simply modifying either an existing report or creating a copy of an existing report to modify for your needs. So, and this second bullet point here is exactly how you'd go in and find the details issues report under the administration reports. So log into MetricStream System I, navigate to administration reports, search for %detail % in the search box, and then select edit report for the MS ISM detailed issue list report. This is the standard delivered detailed issues report. What we're going to be doing here then is we are going to select columns that we don't want to show up or add columns that we want to show up that aren't natively available. Like in the standard detailed issues report, the issue ID is not available as a standard column. So this will help you add it so that it's available for everyone. Because we always talk issue ID, we never talk issue title. So this is the administration manager reports, the report wizard. What you're going to want to do is click on the columns box. This is the list of available columns that can be added to the report that are not delivered as a standard. This is the list of the standard columns that are available that you may want to remove, right? I don't need to see areas of compliance or products or all of the fields that I'm not using in that standard report. I want to just provide a quick snapshot of the relevant fields to my organization, to my end users, so I know exactly what information they're consuming so they can do their job very quickly. So in order to move something over, you highlight it on the left-hand side, you hit the right arrow, it'll move over, it drops to the bottom of the list. What you'll do then is you'll highlight it on the right-hand side and use the up-down arrows to change the order of the columns so that you can present the information to your end users in a way that's very easy to digest. I never want to say, look at the first column here, now scroll over, 4 or 5 times until you get to the second column. Yes?
Can you adjust the order?
Yes. Anytime you move something up, that's going to be, if you move this all the way up to the top, that's going to be the first column that displays in your new report. So one thing to point out, by doing it this way, you're setting the report standards at the system level. So anyone that goes in and enters into that detailed issues report will be presented the same information in the same order. So it makes it very easy for end users to get in there and start analyzing the information instead of having to organize the information. Yes?
Right, and I don't know if you addressed this, but who's actually doing this? What role is?
So this is logging in as the system I role.
I understand
Yep.
that,
And it would be the system administrator. So I'm the system administrator for MetricStream, so I go in and I make these modifications when people request them.
But are you on the IT side or in the business side?
Yes. I'm actually, so I'm the GRC Program Manager, but I've got enough knowledge on the IT side to be able to understand what we need to do. And that's why I was trying to point it out in this step-by-step framework so that, hopefully everyone can at least describe what needs to be done to someone. And all the screenshots you're seeing here are from a test environment. So I'm going to make sure that everyone has access to this particular presentation. So in order to remove items, again, you can select multiple items at one time. So if you want to get rid of standards, core objects, asset classes, assets, processes, requirements, things that you're not using to just make the report easy, right? I never want to say, go to this report, dump it out to Excel, then go delete all of these columns, hide these rows. We need to have something digestible for people in the system and not always direct them outside of the system. Now, there's a lot of other cool things that you can do. After all the report modifications are completed, you can do one of two things. You can save this report as the new default report, or you can save this report as a new report and then add that to the info center using the info center modifications, which I'll talk about next. So again, your newly defined report output is going to display to all of your users in the same order, making it very easy for you to say, on the phone even, go to this report, click on this column, there you have it, filter here, you've got what you need. You can repeat this as many times as you need for other reports. How do you find out what the other reports are? This is where we get into another cool piece, and that's the info center management. So this is the standard issues landing page. Does this look familiar to people? Is this what you see in your system when you log in? Is it useful? This is a great display for demo purposes and RFPs. From a practical usability standpoint, the vast majority of time, I don't care about how many open issues are there. I don't care about the issue number by rating. I need different parameters in place. So what we can do by, again, logging in as System I is you can actually change the display being presented to your end users. So the info center landing pages are the first thing that anyone sees when they log in. Again, I don't want to tell someone to log into MetricStream, click here, click here, click here, and then start working, because it seems inherently inefficient. So much of the real estate that's being presented in those standard landing pages is underutilized real estate. Yes? Yep, you would use System I for this again. So the main info center is the highlighted issues, and then you have your sub-info centers, and you can actually create new info centers too. But configuring info centers allow you, again, to present that information to end users right away and have them not ignoring things that are being presented to them. The info center is the top level. So this is the info center, and these are sub-info centers. You can have multiple sub-info centers for an info center. So when you log in as System I, a couple of options will be available to you that aren't normally there. Namely, this Configure Info Center button. What this is going to allow you to do is take a look at the output that's being presented to your end users and allow you to change it. So right now you can see here on the Overviews tab, we've got a Key Reports issues, we've got charts, open issues by sources and organizations, open or closed issues by source and priority. Again, they're great reports. They're not reports that I need. So what you can do is for each info port, which is one of these little squares, on an info center, you can change what actions are being presented there, right? So in this case, each of the ones can be renamed by double-clicking on the white letters in the blue title, and then you can choose how you want the information to be displayed. Do you want an option for someone to log an issue directly from the Overviews page? That might be nice. Instead of having them land on the Overviews page, click into Issues, click into Log Issue. You can determine if you want your report output to be displayed as a chart, as the actual report itself. So you could choose to have the detailed issues report always display for someone when they log in, showing them the issues that are relevant to them, rather than seeing all of the issues or having to go in and apply a filter. And then you can also remove some of these. So if there's unnecessary items there, you can just blank them out and make the real estate, utilize 100% of the real estate instead of only focusing on certain parts of the screen. Again, multiple options are available. Apparently my formatting got a little crazy on those. Report names are shown in the info report. This is where you're going to be able to find out what report I want to modify when you're trying to modify standard delivered reports. Or if you want to create your own report, that's where you would select your new report as something to display to your end users. So very quickly, I went in, and this probably took me 15, 20 minutes, but I changed the standard issues overview landing page so that the first item that's available to me is the ability to log an issue. I've added the detailed issues report and the detailed actions report as two options that are available to me instead of having to go from the overviews tab to the issues tab to get to those reports. Then what I did was I added a new section for my issues. So this is essentially my issue tasks. So instead of having to always go up to the top or go to the My Tasks Issues sub-info center, I click here and it's interactive. So instead of always directing someone someplace else, just go here. Yes, question in the back.
For the system I login, who in the company has that kind of login? Because I can see where you want to kind of walk a line.
This is something that you want to restrict to a very, very select subgroup of people. You would want to have a partnership between those two people because the business user needs to be able to describe what they want presented to your end users. And then if that business user doesn't have the technical know-how to do it, working with that person in the IT department, they would be able to make these modifications. It gets a little trickier if you're installed on-site versus hosted. But it might be something as simple as filing a support ticket to say, could you please log into System I and make these modifications to my landing page for me? So, oh yes?
Sorry, is it one account that multiple people share?
The System I account is just the main system administrator account for any MetricStream instance. It's actually a named user in the system.
So normally just one per the
I would keep it to one, maybe two individuals at most. That's not an ID that you want to be passing around to everyone. Yeah. Yes, it would be sharing a password, yeah. I'm sorry, I misspoke here. So the My Issues displays an issue report limited down to the issues that I have the security rights to see. And then the My Issues and Tasks directly below that is where I would click through and be able to action those issues, right? So instead of having to go to My Tasks, scroll through all of the issues, I can simply go to the My Issues and Action Tasks, perform a search on the task name, find the issue that I'm looking for, and start working, instead of having all of these roundabout ways of getting at what's important to me. Now, there are a lot of other cool things you can do from like the My Issues perspective. There's conditional formatting in the report wizard, where I can say I want a high priority issue to show up as red, a medium priority issue to show up as yellow, and a low priority issue to show up as green. And I can have it either be the issue priority column itself or the entire row for that. So you can actually start presenting usable reports that can be just exported and sent off to someone instead of always saying, here's your information, now go make all the modifications in Excel. I'm trying to make sure that my end users have the opportunity to come in and just start working. It makes it a lot easier to show someone a completely defined report that's available in the system instead of always having to direct them to Excel. So again, this is what it looks like now. This is what it used to look like here. Not really useful. I don't care, I don't care, I don't care. I can get to the issues report, but I can't get to the detailed issues report. This is the page everyone sees when they log in from an issues perspective. Yes?
Can you schedule notification people that the report, maybe a monthly report would be send or something like that? Or is that not really part of it?
So by setting it up the right way,
Some people won't go into the tool, like you have executives that don't, never go into the tool, you don't want to get
yeah. So in that case, you're going to have someone go into the tool, not necessarily as them, but like mirror what security rights they would need in terms of visibility to certain sets of issues. And then you could just have that person run the Excel or generate the Excel report for them and send it off. Not that I'm aware of. I don't think, I haven't found the ability to create a report scheduled delivery. So that's something that we might have to.
Yeah, I mean, there are scheduling capability, but only thing it requires some more access rights. And anytime you can use the young users, they can get around it. So we have in some of that, we definitely have scheduling report capability, but not for all the reports. There are specific reports have the scheduling capability.
So if you really want to get into the deeper aspects of MetricStream, there's something called App Studio training. It's pretty intense. I went through 2 weeks of App Studio training. So I can go create my own forms, my own info ports. I can create my own data tables, create my own workflows if I wanted to. I have no confidence in my ability to do any of that, but I know that I can do it. So at least when I'm talking with MetricStream support, I can say, listen, this is what I want it to do, and I know that it can be done. How can you help me do that? I'm sorry?
Videos on what version of MetricStream?
Which videos?
There is, no, he's talking about App Studio.
App Studio training is an in-person training.
Oh,
Yes.
Can you only make the configuration at the info center level, or can you just, the reason why I asked is we have.
You can do it at both.
Oh, you can?
Yep.
Will that impact, so, if we have two groups, one will, they have an info center and an issue, and then we, as a sub, info center operational risk,
Mhm.
and changes to that, will that impact the issue?
It depends how you distribute to the role.
Mhm.
I can have an info center and sub-info center. For one role, I can give only one sub-info center, for other, I can give both.
Right. So I can have, you know, this info center and these 3 show up for one security role, and then I can have these 5 show up for another security role. So if you had wanted to hide that operational risk info center from a specific group, it would be you go in, you create a new security role, you assign it to those individuals, and then you assign that security role to the info center and the sub-info center. It sounds really complicated, but it's a lot easier than that, and it just takes a little time to show people in the system how to do it. Because one thing that I've always heard of a lot is that standard MetricStream reporting isn't that great. The problem is nobody understood how to actually make modifications to the standard reporting in order to make it useful. And you know, navigation's clunky. This is how you can do it, and this is how you can greatly impact your end user's work life by saying, look at how easy I've made it for you. So whenever someone says it's too hard to use MetricStream, I don't know how much more simplistic I can make it for you. So maybe the problem isn't MetricStream. So
so those who have feedback regarding reporting in MetricStream, are they now using Tableau from data used from MetricStream?
I've seen some people using Tableau to do some pretty crazy things. I saw Shelby on the list, but I don't know if Shelby from Whitney Hancock is here this year. But there was a presentation from last year where she went through and did a presentation on what they're doing with Tableau. That requires a lot of upfront prep work, as in getting your end users into the system to enter the loss event information, to enter the issue information, to have all your processes defined. There's a lot of setup in place to actually get a lot of the best usage out of Tableau that you can, because it's a pretty powerful tool. And if it's something that you can just do in Excel, it might be easier just to do it in Excel and then trying to incorporate Tableau right now. But I have seen people using Tableau, and then we right now just use Excel to manage a lot of our issues analysis. Yes?
Yeah, I'm mentioning this at the beginning, but how many different groups are using these reports? How all this, who you represent in terms of making changes?
The entire organization. So we've got our.
So there's an assumption that maybe I'm not sure if I'm correct, assumption that everybody in the organization didn't like the first thing and they've all asked you, is this coming from a set of distinguished requests that people are?
This is coming from me walking around the organization and hearing MetricStream sucks everywhere. So,
Some sort of interpretation, what we think people would have wanted had they.
so I sat down with our end users and said, what don't you like? And a lot of the response was, none of this initially shown stuff is important. So a lot of people just assume, well, tough, that you can't do anything.
Can I ask a question then?
Yep.
And it's not meant to be, but it's a little bit controversial. Why was that not done at the onset? Was this done, after people were frustrated, or was this something that wasn't thought about, or was this something that could have been done earlier? There was no time?
It's kind of a catch-22, right? From an implementation standpoint, a lot of implementation time is spent on understanding how the application works and mapping your workflow to the application, or understanding what changes you want to make to the application with the introduction of new fields in order to get your people using the system. So once you get the system in front of people, that's where you're going to get a lot of your feedback. Unfortunately, from their perspective, it looks too late. But from your perspective, you're just trying to learn how they work in order to better tailor the display options to them.
So from a lessons learned, let's say, if this type of thing was done up front, it would avoid a lot of the frustration. If this became quite a best practice for other clients.
A lot of frustration could be eliminated if your end users can tell you exactly how they want to use the system. So that's where it comes. They need to get in and use the system in order to understand what they like and what they don't like. So the nice thing about it is you can make these changes very quickly. So you can react to what your end users are telling you and try and enhance that user adoption, because I don't want someone to have a MetricStream license and not use the system, because I'm paying for nothing. I need return on that. So in order for me to essentially force them to use MetricStream, not like force them, but from an end user adoption standpoint, they don't want to use it because it's change. Everyone always says, we want change and we want it now, unless it involves the way that I work. So you got to slowly introduce things to your end users in order to bring them on board. And then once you get to the point where they're using the system and they like it, your complaints change from, I don't understand how any of this works, it's so hard to enter an issue, to, can we change the color on this report and add additional fields? It kind of really changes the dynamic of how you're interacting with your end users, and they're seeing it more as a help instead of a hindrance.
So many times the end user doesn't know what they want.
Yeah.
Report respectively. I want report. If you ask them the question, what type of report you want, I don't know.
Yeah, that's, the statement was,
But I'm just wondering if there's a shortcut to getting users to be more specific about their specifications up front and avoid some of this frustration.
if you were transitioning from a previous system to MetricStream, it's a lot easier. If you're transitioning from Excel worksheets and Word documents, it's a lot more difficult, because they don't understand how the display options work, so they can't articulate to you what they want to see from an end user standpoint. And
Many times in some customers, based on my experience, if it's a mature customer, we start with reports.
yeah,
Forget fields and forms and workflow. We start with what is that you want to see in the system. Then track back.
yeah.
It becomes difficult sometimes because they'll have a lot of feedbacks. So that's one more approach in big customers. You can start with reporting first. What's the output that you're expecting?
And then backwards engineer it.
The forms and workflow and things like that.
But
Workflow, the key, like, if the end user has accepted the workflow, because that's the main driver of MetricStream, the rest of it will fall through.
It is true and false depending on customer. Some people don't like workflows at all. They just want to enter the data and get the
And
output.
change it as many times and circumvent
Yep.
the process, and this is the whole feature about MetricStream.
So like the most difficult question you have to ask when you're going through an implementation or you're working with your end users is, what are you willing to give up in order to use a tool like MetricStream for GRC? If you install the thought that the GRC methodology is more important than the tool that's being used, that changes everyone's perspective a little bit, because if we're not all approaching this together and starting to use common terminology, common risk matrices, common risk language, and things like that, it doesn't matter anyways, because ITRM is using different terminology than VRM was using different terminology from your RCSA group. You're just using it as a database warehouse and extracting information and then having to transform it all again. But if you approach it from a unified front, that's where you can really start getting some of that the powerful capabilities of the relationships within MetricStream. Yes?
So I have two questions. One is, beyond info center configurations, have you guys considered form level modifications as
Yes, we have. For that, more often than not, we'll engage the support team to help get a quote for that and then introduce it. I just don't have the time to go in and relearn all of the SQL scripts that are necessary to extract the right information, the JavaScript that's necessary in order to make sure that the form is working on its own. I can point them in the right direction a lot easier now because of that App Studio training. But again, I'm not confident in my ability to go in and make it myself. Yeah.
Second question is, so for us, the biggest request we've gotten from a list report perspective is combining the issues and actions report.
So I did that.
Yeah.
I've created.
Possible for the report system?
Yep. With some minor SQL modifications based off of what the field values are. It's possible. I've done it. We've actually got a color-coded issue report based off of priority plus whatever status we have that people love to use. The problem is that only shows you the overarching issue information. They've got to click into it and then click on the Actions tab to find out where they're at from an action plan status, right? I might know there's 4 action plans there. I don't know immediately. 3 are closed, 1 is open. So we've built that report to show people the combined issue and action information. And we're just waiting to go through a couple of additional training sessions with them before we introduce it as an option available. We're probably just going to have another key report listed up here, the detailed issues and action report. Because that's one of the things that our end users commented about too. It's like, I just don't know from the issue form exactly where I'm at with my actions. But this way, it looks a little funny because your issue title is going to be repeated for every single action. As long as people understand that, they're fine with it. But it's possible, and we've done it.
Do any of these things that you have talked about rise to the level of what would be considered a formal change management, or are they all considered non-formal change management?
I would consider this part of the formal change management process because you're.
So do you need to do you have to go through a formal testing?
I would suggest that.
Quality assurance process?
I would say do everything first in dev. Make sure that your end users are okay with the information that's being presented, because I don't like to release something and then have to immediately go in and make changes again. Let's try and tighten it up and make sure it's as good as we can possibly get it before you start complaining to me again about how you want to make changes. I'm more than happy to make them, but let's try and get it done right the first time. But the nice thing is a lot of this doesn't require any back-end work or anything like that. It's all more so, it's not necessarily superficial changes, but realistically it's superficial changes in just modifying the UI to make it easier for your end users to work. Yes?
It seems like so far what we've done is primarily like choosing which columns and things like that. Is that kind of right?
And then changing the landing pages so that the information your end users need are presented right away.
One of the things that we wanted to do, and I know we're trying to do, what I would keep doing, I think it was the equivalent of pivot tables in Excel.
Yep.
And kind of show some of that, but you can't do them when both the row and the column are categorical items, you know what I'm saying? I think we can't get counts of like, see if I can count the that report category in the row, and then counts of the process.
So I think some of those options might be available in your totals and your sorts. You have the ability to include counts of subgroups within the advanced reporting aspect. Yeah, well, this is available to anyone that has, is it the application admin security role?
We tried doing that, and we can only get pivot tables to work if one of either the row or the column was like basically numeric.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, basically summing a number or counting a number, but if both the row and the column were categories, it wouldn't work.
Hmm.
So I don't know, I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I haven't gotten into that much of it yet. I've mainly focused on the columns, the advanced color coding options, pre-filtering the reports so that we're not showing people all of the closed issues. Let's just show you. Yep, and that's available through the filters selection there. Yeah, and relying on your end users to make those modifications for themselves is very hard to troubleshoot. I'd rather do it right and give it to them. Question in the back.
I was wondering, what size of community are you supporting with these changes?
We've got about, so I'm going to split it between our total user account and then what I consider our active users. We're using the policy and document management system, so everyone in the bank has a license to MetricStream. So that's just shy of 7,000 people. The active user list that I support is around 250 people. No, I lied. About 180 people, and that's our issue managers, our RCSA individuals, our policy approvers, our ITRM group, and then we're moving our vendor risk management group into MetricStream as well. We're using PDMS, the issues module, the ORM module, the ITRM module, and soon the VRM module. Yep, financials, yep. Yes? It depends on, so there's two ways that you can apply it. A lot of it comes with filtering, right? If I just exclude all of the closed issues that I don't care about from a report that I want people to focus on, that's always going to be available in the detailed issues report, right? So the report that I create, I just want the active stuff. And we've noticed that if we applied the filter on at the report level, it does return quite a bit faster. Yeah. And you had a question?
So you talked about measuring adoption.
Yep.
So all these changes that you made, what's your favorite couple of ways to measure, does it make things better, better adoption?
How do you like the system? What complaints are you hearing or what issues are being raised now? Versus instead of it being, I don't know how to do this, or it's so complicated to do this, we hear, it'd be cool if this column was available in the report. So that to me tells me there's a dramatic shift in my end user's sentiment from it's a complete pain to use to how can we make it better? And that's the kind of perception shift that you want to make, because that's really encouraging the usage of the system, getting the best ROI out of it. Yeah. Yep. I mean, if you want to use the pain management smiley to frowny face sort of thing, you could do that too. Just to try and get something and make it fun. A lot of times people find it, they don't want to do it. But if you try and make it fun, or try and, a lot of times even if you try and launch MetricStream as a different brand, right? Rebrand it in some way and make it exciting after you've made the changes. Because then it's the same system, but it looks different and you can convince people that it's new and improved. Any other questions? I don't know where we're at for time. Okay. And again, these step-by-step options here, very easy to do.
If they can keep up the iceberg, there are a lot of things I think TCF Bank is changing its value, adding data tables, a lot of options out there.
Yeah. Yes.
So I do see the screenshots now up on 6.x. So
Yes.
not to put you on the spot, but any plans for M7?
We are on 6.0 SP5. We've got to upgrade to SP6 to better prepare for an upgrade to 7. So we're going to go through that upgrade first before we decide to move over to 7. Now, my understanding in the demos that I've seen, a lot of this is still applicable in 7.
Much easier with
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
we can go experience centers. But we can explain it in user. One is definitely the usability. That's number one, what we are seeing. It's completely different shift.
There's a lot more individual user options to change landing pages and reports. And I'm okay with that, except when someone makes a thingamabob report and I don't have that report, and they're like, my thingamabob report is broken, and I'm like, from a supportability standpoint, I'm like, I don't understand what you're talking about, and then you have to just walk through the screen of what they're looking at.
Yes, in M7, many of these things can be done by end users, but they can't change the original report.
Mm.
But they can change the view, like adding columns, creating dynamic dashboards, saving preference on the fly.
Yeah.
So all those things can be done. They can see it if they want, but you are not changing the core product. You are changing your view. That's it. But the backend remains administrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question here.
So if you're in M7, if it's really changing view, is there an audit trail that's capturing that?
At user level. Yeah. change. But since they're not changing structurally, there's no impact to the system as such.
But like, what you just explained,
Mhm.
there's no option on it.
This one is there, but it's in the background. We don't have a report asset. That's why he said that don't give system access to everybody. It can be
Yeah.
customized.
So if you're on-premise installed, you would need to work with your IT department to locate where that is. If you're in the cloud, you would file a support ticket to say, these are the changes that we've made. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for attending. I hope it was helpful, and we'll make sure this is available.